The janitor's jab. They say boxing is 90% mental. The other 10% is just trying not to wet your trunks when a giant named the Butcher tries to turn your nose into a second belly button. For Barnaby Bean, the mental part was easy. He was a full-time resident of his own imagination. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, while his hands pushed a mop across stained concrete. His mind was elsewhere. He heard the roar of the crowd, felt the weight of the belt. In reality, his biggest physical challenge was lifting a mop bucket without herniating a disc. The disconnect was profound. This isn't a story about blood, sweat, and tears. Well, there's sweat, rivers of it, mostly Barnaby's, and usually born of panic. This is the story of how a man who couldn't punch his way out of a wet paper bag accidentally, chaotically, miraculously, punched his way into history. The air inside Salty Sal's gym didn't hang, it festered. A thick soup of decades-old leather, shattered ambition, and enough icy hot to numb a dinosaur. In the ring, Barnaby Bean, a man with the wiry build of a scarecrow and the coordination of a newborn giraffe on roller skates, was currently engaged in the most important part of his training, trying to get fossilized gum off the canvas. "Scrape it, Bean, don't just tickle it." Sal, a man whose face looked less like a face and more like a well-used catcher's mitt left out in a week-long rainstorm. He spoke of being a legend in the 70s, of fights in smoky basements and packed arenas. To date, the only footage anyone had found was a blurry home movie of what might have been Sal, or might have been a large, angry badger. "I'm trying, Sal," Barnaby wheezed, putting his full 145 pounds into the putty knife. He applied heroic, misguided pressure. The knife slipped. He face-planted onto the canvas with a soft oof. Meanwhile, in the center of that same ring, poetry in motion. Spike O'Malley, the gym's golden goose. A middleweight with a left hook that could knock out a horse and a smile that could charm points off a judge's scorecard. He danced, floated, threw combinations that sounded like pistol shots. "Tomorrow night, Spikes," Sal barked, his voice shifting to gravelly reverence. "Tomorrow night, you face Titan Vargo, the heavyweight champion of the world. We've been training for this since you was in diapers." Spike threw a final right cross that made the heavy bag in the corner swing in sympathetic fear. "I'm ready, Sal. I'm gonna send that overgrown slab back under whatever rock he crawled from." Then it happened. A moment of catastrophic stupidity, so perfect, so beautifully idiotic, it could only happen in real life. Barnaby, with a final grunt of triumph, pried the petrified gum free. He stood, held the offending blob aloft on his putty knife like a conquering knight, and beamed. And in his jubilation, he committed the cardinal sin. He forgot to move the water bucket. Spike, feeling the flash of a champion, decided to end his workout with style. He slid into the Ali shuffle, a blur of fancy footwork. His trailing foot caught the bucket's handle. Physics took over. The bucket launched upward like a titanium-plated pigeon. Spike's legs shot out in opposite directions, describing a perfect split in midair. Then came the sound. Not a pop, not a snap. A wet, fibrous crack crunch, like dry twigs demolished in a forest fire. Spike hit the mat with a high-pitched scream that silenced the gym. The heavy bags stopped swinging. The speed bags shuddered to a halt. Even the flies paused mid-air out of respect. Sal was at his side in an instant. He prodded the ankle, already blooming into a horrific purple eggplant. His face drained to a shade of green usually reserved for seasick sailors. "It's busted," Sal whispered, the sound carrying in the tomb-like quiet. "Shattered. The ligaments. They're playing jump rope with the bone." "The fight," Spike wailed, tears mixing on his cheeks.
The contract, Sal. The or else clause. If I don't show, we owe the promoters $1 million. The gym is collateral. We lose everything.
Barnaby, silent witness to the apocalypse he'd triggered, peeked over the ropes like a curious prairie dog. I can drive him to the hospital? Sal didn't hear him. Sal was staring into the abyss. His eyes flicked from Spike's ruined ankle to the signed contract on his desk to the giant wall clock whose ticking suddenly sounded like a detonation countdown. 24 hours. Sold-out arena. International press. Promoters with the moral flexibility of cobras expecting an O'Malley in the ring. He needed a body. A warm body that could fit into silk shorts. His desperate gaze swept the gym, past broken heavy bags, dusty trophies, the motivational poster that just said, "Hit him," and landed, with the force of fate, on Barnaby Bean. Barnaby followed his stare and slowly pointed a trembling finger at his own chest. Oh no. No, Sal, I don't box. I box up old equipment for storage. Cardboard boxes? Tape? Completely different verb. You're about the same height as Spike, Sal muttered, walking toward him. Same reach, maybe. I'm also about the same toughness as a well-made soufflé, Barnaby backpedaled. I bruise when someone looks at me sternly. You owe me, Bean. Sal's voice cracked with threat and pleading. I gave you this job when you got fired from the circus for being too clumsy to be a clown. This is your moment. Barnaby, in full panic, took another step back. His heel landed on the mop handle he'd left lying on the floor. Fwuck! The handle sprang upward like a medieval trebuchet. It smacked the base of a hanging 200-pound heavy bag with a sound like a gunshot. The bag didn't swing. It hurtled. A violent, flat arc straight toward Sal's head. Barnaby, you walnut! Sal ducked. He ducked because Barnaby, in pure terror reflex, had ducked first, pulling Sal down by sheer psychic panic. The massive bag missed them by millimeters, its breeze fluttering their hair. It collided with a second heavy bag. That bag cannoned into a third. The third slammed into the speed bag platform. The chain snapped. The speed bag became a lethal leather projectile. Jump ropes ejected into the air like exploding spaghetti. The shockwave traveled to a dumbbell rack, which teetered once, twice, and gave up with a catastrophic metallic crash, boom, bang. Barnaby stood in the eye of this hurricane, flailing like a man attacked by invisible bees. A 12-pound medicine ball, shaken loose from a high shelf, dropped toward his skull. He threw his hands up, shrieking, and his left forearm connected with the ball in a perfect, accidental parry, deflecting it harmlessly into gym mats. He stared at his own arm as if it had betrayed him. I didn't mean to do that. Through the settling dust, Sal stared not at the wreckage, but at Barnaby. His eyes were wide, not with anger, but with the dawning, insane light of revelation. You see that? Sal whispered, awestruck. Barnaby surveyed the apocalyptic scene. See what? The complete destruction of your livelihood? Yes, Sal, I see it. No. You ducked the bag. You saw it coming. And you, Sal pointed a shaking finger at the medicine ball nestled in the mats. You parried that. With timing. Kid, you're unpredictable. I'm uncoordinated, Barnaby wailed. There's a medical term for it. Sal stumbled forward, gripping Barnaby's shoulders with iron vices. Wild, desperate hope ignited in his eyes. Bean, listen. In that ring, predictability is death. Everyone's got a pattern, but you're a chaos machine. A walking, talking, lucky accident. We just hit the jackpot. No, Barnaby said flatly. I think you just hit your head. Congratulations, kid. Sal slapped his back so hard he coughed. You're fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world tomorrow night. The sound Barnaby made then was not a word. It was the pure, distilled essence of existential dread. 24 sleepless, terror-filled hours later, Barnaby sat on a cold bench in a locker room smelling of ancient sweat, cheap aftershave, and industrial-strength liniment. The silk shorts he wore, Spike's shorts, were 3 sizes too big, pooling around his bony knees. He looked less like a fighter and more like a child who'd raided his father's wardrobe for a tragic school play. "I can't do this, Sal," Barnaby whispered, his tremors practically seismic. "I've seen Titan Vargo on posters. He looks like he was carved off a mountain by an angry god. He eats bricks and poops cement. I, on the other hand, get winded reading a menu." "You don't gotta win," Sal said for the 100th time, wrapping Barnaby's hands with gauze and tape. Less like a trainer, more like a man hastily packing a fragile, suicidal bomb. "You just gotta survive. Dance, run, hug him like he's your long-lost brother. We go the distance, we get our paycheck, we live to see another day." "I can't dance," Barnaby's voice cracked. "At my cousin's wedding, I two-stepped on the flower girl. She wore a walking boot for a month." "Just remember what I taught you," Sal lied with impressive conviction. In the past day, he had taught Barnaby precisely nothing. "Keep your hands up, high. Pretend you're protecting 2 priceless Fabergé eggs. And bob and weave. Imagine you're a sparrow dodging raindrops." The locker room door swung open. A woman holding a microphone, trailed by a cameraman lugging equipment worth more than Barnaby's car. Penny Price from Sports Daily. Sharp as a razor, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing and a smile that could disarm a critic. "Here he is," she said smoothly to the camera. "The mystery man. The last-minute substitute. The rumor mill is wild. Some say Barnaby the Barrage Bean is a secret prodigy, trained by silent monks in a Himalayan temple. Others whisper he's a decorated underground street fighter." "Barnaby," she turned, thrusting the mic toward him, "is it true you once fought a grizzly bear to a standstill for a salmon?" Barnaby blinked, momentarily stunned into honesty. No. I once fought a particularly determined raccoon for a half-eaten bagel behind the gym. He won. I got a tetanus shot." Penny's laugh wasn't polished. It was genuine, surprised, like wind chimes in a sudden breeze. "A man of modesty. The oddsmakers have you at 100 to 1. Why step into that ring?" Barnaby's eyes darted to Sal, who was behind Penny, miming a frantic throat-slitting motion. He looked back at Penny, into those clever, curious eyes, and something shifted. The panic receded, replaced by strange, clear honesty. "Because sometimes life hits you," he said softly. "And you don't get to choose how hard, or when. You just have to decide if you're going to get back up. Even if you're just getting up to ask the referee for the count." Penny held his gaze a beat longer than necessary, her professional smile softening into something real. "Good luck out there, Barnaby Bean. Try not to get killed." As she left, Barnaby watched her go, his terror momentarily displaced by a new, warm, entirely inappropriate feeling. "I think I'm in love," he whispered. Sal shoved a mouthguard into his hand. "Focus, lover boy. You're about to get more brain damage than a soap opera character." The roar of the arena was a physical thing, a wall of sound vibrating in Barnaby's teeth, making his organs feel like jelly. The lights were blinding, searing white that turned the crowd into a dark, roaring ocean. In the red corner, Titan Vargo. The name was not hyperbole, a wall of sculpted, angry muscle that seemed to absorb light. He glared across the ring with an expression suggesting Barnaby was a minor, unpleasant stain on his otherwise perfect world. In the blue corner, Barnaby, dwarfed by the robe, swimming in the shorts. He looked profoundly lost, like a man who'd taken a wrong turn on the way to the library and ended up in a gladiator pit. Ding! The bell was a death knell. Titan Vargo didn't walk from his corner. He erupted. A natural disaster in satin trunks. He threw a right hand that wasn't a punch. It was a declaration of war, moving with the speed and mass of a freight train. Barnaby, remembering Sal's last-second shriek of "Bob!" tried to comply. But his brain, flooded with pure animal fear, short-circuited his legs. They simply folded. He collapsed into a heap just as Titan's fist whistled through the space where his head had been. The momentum carried the champion forward. With nothing to hit, he stumbled, tripped over Barnaby's curled-up form, and crashed face-first into the turnbuckle with a mighty thwump. The crowd's roar died into a collective, startled gasp. Barnaby, realizing he was somehow still conscious, scrambled up. He stared at Titan, who was shaking his head like an angry bull, and blurted in sheer, transparent relief, "Oh my gosh, I missed!" The crowd, misunderstanding completely, erupted. They thought it was bravado, a brilliant taunt. They cheered the sheer audacity. Titan Vargo was not amused. Humiliation burned in his eyes hotter than ambition. He came forward again, not with wild charge, but cold, technical fury. Jab, 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 pistoning forward, aiming to dismantle this annoying insect. Barnaby didn't know how to block, but he'd spent years cleaning the gym's foggy, sweat-streaked windows. Instinct took over. He frantically waved his open hands in short, circular swipes, as if clearing a pane of glass. Swish, swish, swish. Every textbook jab was met not with a glove, but with a slap, a baffling parry that threw off their rhythm and power. It looked absurd. It looked like he was conducting an invisible orchestra of panic. Titan paused, utterly confused. His opponent wasn't fighting. He was cleaning. Seizing the moment, Barnaby tried to back away. His foot caught on the loose fabric of his oversized shorts. "Ah!" he yelped, spun 180, and found himself facing the ropes, back exposed to the champion. Titan saw the opening. A cruel smile touched his lips. He wound up a monstrous right hand, aiming for the back of Barnaby's unprotected head. Illegal, but in his rage he didn't care. At that exact millisecond, Barnaby, windmilling his arms to regain balance, threw his right elbow straight back in a desperate bid to stop his fall. Bonk. Not a loud sound. A perfect, almost polite, percussive tap. Barnaby's pointy elbow connected with the exact center of Titan Vargo's broad, flat nose. The champion stopped. His eyes, previously full of murderous intent, glazed over. They slowly crossed. He took one stumbling step back, then another. He wobbled like a mighty oak in a hurricane, a monument to imbalance. Then, with strange, almost graceful slowness, the mountain fell. Boom. Flat on his back, staring at the arena lights with profound bewilderment. The silence was absolute for 3 full seconds. Then the arena detonated. Barnaby stood there, staring at his own elbow as if it were an alien artifact. The referee sprinted in, began the count. 1, 2. Titan's legs twitched, but his eyes still saw constellations. 9, 10. It was over. Barnaby Bean had won, in the first round, by accidental elbow. Penny Price was first in the ring, shoving her microphone under his nose as cameras flashed like lightning. "Barnaby Bean, an earth-shattering upset. That move, the way you turned your back, the precision. The papers are calling it the Barnaby backhand. Was that a secret technique? A master stroke of misdirection?" Barnaby, drenched in sweat and disbelief, looked from her eager face to his miraculous elbow and back. He knew what he should say. He should nod, say something cryptic, embrace the myth. But he was just Barnaby, a janitor. Honesty was his only reflex. "No," he panted, a goofy, helpless smile breaking across his face. "I was just trying not to fall down. Also, I think I pulled a glute." The crowd, hearing his admission over the PA, didn't boo. They roared with laughter. They cheered louder. They loved him even more. He wasn't a mysterious genius. He was them. The ultimate underdog, the anti-champion, the man who won by sheer, glorious, catastrophic accident. In the corner, Sal wept openly, hugging a spit bucket. "My boy," he sobbed. "My beautiful, magnificent, clumsy kid." You'd think the story ends there, wouldn't you? The fairy tale complete. But fate, like the gym floor after a sweaty sparring session, is slippery. Titan Vargo, upon regaining consciousness, was apoplectic. He screamed foul, demanded investigation, demanded a rematch. The boxing commission, reviewing footage that looked more like slapstick than a title fight, was in a bind. No foul. A legal, if bizarre, strike. They couldn't strip the title based on excessive luck, so they mandated it. Barnaby Bean, who'd never thrown a professional punch until that night, was now mandatory #1 contender for his own title. The next 6 months were surreal. Sal, now a true believer in the chaos theory of boxing, tried to impose order. It was like teaching a tornado to tap dance. Barnaby would punch the heavy bag, only to get his glove stuck in the chains when he overswung. He'd attempt jump rope and end up tangled like a fly in a web, requiring rescue. He learned to slip punches by tripping over his own feet, to roll with a punch by literally falling over and rolling away. But something strange happened. The constant, low-grade terror of impending doom became fuel. Barnaby stopped being paralyzed by fear and started moving with it. His scarecrow frame filled with lean, wiry muscle. His arms, once comparable to wet noodles, gained definition. He was getting in shape not to be a killer, but to be a better survivor. And Penny. Penny saw through the champ facade from day one. While the sports world painted him as an enigmatic savant, she saw the man who brought her coffee exactly how she liked it, who could name every cleaning product in his janitorial closet, who made her laugh with self-deprecating stories of gym life disasters. She didn't fall for the champion. She fell for the janitor inside the silk robe. "The press thinks you're a mystery, Barnaby," she told him one night, sharing pizza amid scattered magazines with his face on the cover. "They think you're playing 4D chess while everyone else plays checkers. They're writing think pieces about your psychological warfare and unorthodox biomechanics." "I'm not," Barnaby laughed, wiping cheese from his chin. "I'm just in there trying to remember to breathe and not get my nose rearranged. It's not strategy, it's panic with a plan." "That's exactly it," Penny said, her eyes serious. "Everyone else in that ring is there to hurt someone, to impose their will. You're in there for one reason, not to get hurt, to protect yourself. It makes you fundamentally, beautifully unpredictable. You're not a fighter, Barnaby. You're a chaotic element. And in an ordered system, chaos wins." The rematch arrived. Titan Vargo was no longer just angry. He was a focused, cold engine of vengeance. He'd spent 6 months studying the Bean tapes, searching for a pattern, a tell, a weakness. He found only glorious, frustrating randomness. Ding! Round 1. Titan came out not with furious charge, but cautious, steely precision. He flicked a jab. Barnaby, remembering the motion of sweeping a dirty corner, reacted not with a block, but with a wide, slapping parry. A move the papers would later dub the janitor's jab. It looked ridiculous. It worked. Round 2. A frustrated Titan threw a looping hook. Barnaby's attempt to duck was more of a stumble, but he came up off balance, his arm flailing upward in a clumsy, desperate uppercut. It caught Titan flush in the solar plexus. The champion oofed, more in surprise than pain. The fight was ugly. It wasn't the sweet science. It was the awkward, frantic science of two men trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces kept changing shape. By the third round, against all odds, Barnaby was ahead on points. He was landing not because he was more skilled, but because Titan was waiting for a pattern that never came. Round 4. Titan, pride shattered, reverted to base nature. Destruction. He backed Barnaby into the ropes, murderous glint in his eye. Raised his fist, a hammer poised to smash the absurdity out of existence. Sal was screaming from the corner, voice raw. "Kiss him! Kiss him!" In Sal's frazzled mind, he meant clinch. Barnaby, of course, did not know this. Barnaby looked past Titan's shoulder, saw Penny at ringside, knuckles white as she gripped her notepad, saw Sal, purple with panic. He didn't want to get hit. That simple, pure desire cut through everything. He remembered the weight of the heavy water bucket at the gym, the strain in his shoulders. Closed his eyes, wound up, and threw not a punch, but an appeal to the universe. The ugliest, slowest, most telegraphed right hook in the storied history of fisticuffs. Titan Vargo saw it coming from a week away. So slow, so pathetic, that a snort of derisive laughter escaped him. He opened his mouth to laugh. Thwud! It wasn't a powerful punch, but it was perfectly placed, and Titan's mouth was open, his jaw unlocked. The impact traveled up the bone, short-circuiting his nervous system. His eyes rolled back. He performed a slow, complete 360 pirouette, a grotesque ballet, and collapsed to the canvas in a heap. The referee didn't even bother with a full count. It was over. Barnaby Bean stood in the center of the ring, the undisputed, bewildered heavyweight champion of the world. He didn't leap onto the ropes. He didn't shout. He looked at his glove, then at the fallen giant, and his first, instinctive words were, "Oh, geez. Sorry about your tooth." Barnaby Bean's championship reign lasted 2 gloriously confusing years. He never became a technical master. He still tripped. He still flinched at loud noises. But he defended his title 4 times against men who'd trained since childhood, men with killer instincts and perfect records. He beat them all. Not with skill, but with a strategy no one could game plan for. Sheer, unadulterated, lovable chaos. He retired undefeated, not because he was forced out, but because he'd had enough. He'd proven whatever point there was to prove. With his earnings and Sal's eternal, teary gratitude, they opened a new gym. Not a palace of pain, but a haven. They called it the Floorboard Gym. The motto was stenciled on the wall, "Where even the clumsy can fight." On opening day, a crowd gathered on the sidewalk. Barnaby stood before the doors, giant ceremonial scissors in his hand. Beside him stood his wife, Penny Bean, holding their toddler son, who was contentedly gumming a miniature boxing glove. Sal stood on his other side, grinning his toothless, catcher's mitt grin. He put a gnarled hand on Barnaby's shoulder. "You did good, kid. You proved something. Something important." Barnaby smiled, looking at the hopeful faces in the crowd, the shy kids, the awkward teenagers, the adults who'd never felt athletic a day in their lives. "What's that, Sal?" "That you don't need to be a fighter to win a fight," Sal said, his voice rough. "You just gotta be willing to stand up. Even when your knees are knocking so loud they're playing a song. Even when you're terrified. You just gotta stand up." Barnaby nodded. He looked past the crowd, through the gleaming new glass door, at the spotless, polished wood of the gym floor. He'd mopped it himself that morning. It was perfect. He cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered. "All right," Barnaby called out, clapping his hands with a janitor's practiced efficiency. "Who's ready to learn the first rule of boxing? Hands up. And the second rule? Always, always watch out for the gum." And with that, The accidental contender, the janitor champion, lived happily ever after, proving once and for all that sometimes life hits you with everything it's got. And sometimes you just have to flail your arms with honest, chaotic hope until the bad guy, bewildered and defeated, simply falls down.